Is it a sin to blank, right? This is a thing we often ask ourselves. Is it a sin to do this or to do that? Or, like, can I do this? And we often ask ourselves these things because we want, that compromise, right? We want to be able to do the things we want while still, obeying God, right? That's what we want. But there's an issue with that asking that question, because typically what it leads to is, oh, well, the Bible doesn't say that this exactly is a sin, so I'm just gonna go and do it. God, if I'm wrong, you can tell me. You can always just tell me, right? But there's an issue of that, being that it's putting, God's will above, or putting our will above God's own will, right? When we do that, that compromise, which is an issue. You can't always just, because I'm sure God gives us the answers when we genuinely ask for them. But when you sit there and are like, yeah, I probably shouldn't do this, but you can always just, he can, send lightning right down next to me, and I'll get the message, right? But that's not a way we should live. I remember when I first started a relationship with, sorry, my dog is barking. Hey, enough. You're barking at nothing. Anyways, you're not barking at anything. But I remember when I first started a relationship with God, I was smoking weed, and I was like, well, the Bible doesn't say, you can't smoke weed. It says, warns against drunkenness and stuff like that, but that's different, that's different. But it was just an excuse, right? It was just an excuse so I could continue to do what I want. And in doing what I wanted, I got, it separated me in those times when I would get high, right? And I was like, well, I can't drink, but I can smoke it, because it's not just, smoking. It was a bunch of things, right? But, then I find out, like, oh, this is separating me from God. So that's a good way to gauge if it might be sinful. Because you know what? The Bible might not say it. And maybe you're like me and you're trying to justify, give a reason to do these things. Or maybe you genuinely don't know. Because there's also things in times where I genuinely don't know. And the best answer to that is, if you genuinely don't know, you search up and down the Bible, you tried watching videos, is, unless it's, a necessary thing you need to do, why do it? Why take that risk, right? Why take that risk where it could be sinful, and it could create that separation between you and God, right? And it's dangerous, because if you don't know and you keep doing it and you still don't know, and let's say you find out and it is sinful, you've brought yourself down a path. What people often don't realize, or like to talk about, is that, we often see like, oh, I can't, go out and have fun. I can't go party. I can't do this. I can't do that. Like, I have to obey. But not sinning is benefits us here in this world, and, for our salvation too, right? It's not, it's not a law that's there for no reason, right? It creates separation, which in turn makes our life worse. Sin is not rational. You also have to remember that. When you get thoughts and urges to do certain things, you have to remember that a lot of the time they're not of you. Like, don't trust your own thoughts and feelings. Don't lean on your own understanding of how you feel. I've learned that a lot recently, because if you always go off on how you feel, or how you are, or how you're thinking, then you're just going to fall into sin. But you got to lean on God's understanding, right? It's better for you to suffer, it's better for you to cut off that hand or gouge out that eye, than to enter hell with both of them. You know what I mean? And this is something we all struggle with, because it feels so easy to make excuses. Well, like, oh, it doesn't say exactly, or, I'll just do this one time, or, stuff like that, small stuff, not even necessarily big stuff, but small stuff. But it's so dangerous to do that. It's so dangerous to compromise. So if you really don't know if something is a sin or not, of course, like I said, it's probably best just not to do it. But I'd also pray about it, because there are things I didn't understand. Like if this is a sin, like, why is this sinful? Why is this? And, if you pray about it, and then, you get understanding from it some way or another, because, you have to remember, prayer is not something where we, like, go to God in hopes that he hears us, and like do pray there for like 6 hours, like maybe he'll hear my prayer. God hears your prayer, and guess what? If your prayer aligns with his will, he's gonna do it. That's just how it is. God's will be done no matter what. You can't change that. I can't change that. If it doesn't align with it, it's not gonna be done. Now we have to be patient. I just made a video about patience recently, and I think that if you don't know how to really be patient or why or whatever, I think that's a good video for you to watch after this one. A little blow plug right there. But what was I saying? Yeah, so if it aligns with his will, it's going to be done, right? If it doesn't, it's not. But just because something aligns with his will doesn't mean it's going to be done immediately like this. You have to be patient. Like, if you're like, God, is this sinful or not? Like, right before you're about to do it, like, you get into prayer and you're like, God, is this sinful or not? Reveal it to me right now. And then he doesn't. It doesn't mean you can go and just do that. It doesn't mean he's giving you the okay to do that, or, oh, yeah, it means it's not sinful. Sometimes you have to wait, and sometimes you have to suffer a bit. The path, the path with God is not an easy one, especially in today's world when there are so many temptations. You're watching this video probably on your phone right now. It might be a computer or a phone, but that's a temptation in and of itself, and you know it as well as I do, right? So you have to be patient when you ask these things too. And if you don't want to have these, these pulls, you feel the pull towards this thing or that thing, you don't know if it's sinful or not, then you need to walk more in the Spirit, and you need to not be in the flesh as much. What does that look like? It looks like more, better, consistent prayer, more time being in the Word, more time living for others instead of living for yourself, more time doing the things, Jesus did when he was here on earth, right? That's what it means more to, walk in the Spirit, ask the Holy Spirit to guide you, when you feel conviction, pray about it. When you feel all these things or these pulls, you pray about it, and it works if you, but you got to be consistent and persistent, and your heart at the start doesn't even need to be in the right place. And you might be thinking like, well, your heart definitely needs to be in the right place, and it does, but if your heart isn't in the right place, still pray, because there's only one way to get your heart in the right place, right? And that's, through God's will, right? If you pray about it, eventually, persistently and consistently, it'll eventually become in the right place, because that's God's will. That's what he wants. If you try to draw close and near to him, he will draw near to you, right? He's not going to get in the way of your free will, unless it's his will. And he wants to be close to you, so there's no reason not to. Like, I remember that's been my excuse. My heart's not in the right place, so why even try? Why even do this? Because it's coming from a place of, not even wanting what God wants for me. I want to do my things my own way, but that's why you just got to start praying, because that's your flesh battling your spirit right there, right? Your flesh wants to do the things of the flesh, and your spirit wants to do the things of the spirit. And so your flesh doesn't want anything to do with the Spirit. And what's the number one way, to get more into the Spirit? It's to pray, right? And so your flesh is going to constantly be battling you. I've had times where I've got on, sat down to pray, and I just stared at the wall for minutes. There's no logical reason for me to do that. It's just procrastinating. Flesh was procrastinating in every single way possible for no reason, because your flesh doesn't want things of the Spirit, and your spirit doesn't want things of the flesh. But your flesh typically is more powerful. I mean, depending on, what you do. But most people are more in the flesh than they are in the Spirit. So your flesh is going to be more powerful. And it's more easier to give into the desires of the flesh because of things in the world, You know how easy it is to give into lust. It's very easy if you are not in the Spirit at all, right? And so you keep this cycle of just being in the flesh and not in the Spirit, right? But anyways, yeah. If you don't know if it's a sin, and it's like not necessary, like if you don't know if doing this certain sort of activity, recreational activity, is a sin, it's probably best just not to do it, or pray about it too. But remember, you got to get your heart in the right place. Maybe for some people it's not a sin to play video games for recreation for a little bit, right? Depending on what they are. But for some people it is. And now how can this be? How could it be a sin for one person, not for another person? Because it's where your heart is at. If you're waiting all day to get home to play games, and then you go to sleep, You know, even if you set that time limit for yourself and then you go to sleep and you're just waiting for that next day, you know, that's the only thing you're excited about or on your mind, your heart is in the wrong place, and it's sinful, right? Because your heart is not on God, and that's where your heart has to be, you know? So a person like me, you know, has to cut out some of these things, because not because necessarily they're sinful, but because they lead to more sin. You know, you got to cut off that hand. And if they lead to more sin, they might as well be sinful, right? But for me, it could be different for another person, right? There are people out there who could do activities that I can't do because they'll lead to sin, and they'll be completely fine by it, you know? But everyone's different. We're called to suffer. It's not supposed to be easy, but it is the best thing you can do. Not just because it's, you know, because God will reward you too, you know? Even if it's suffering for like, I don't know, 20 years, right? You know, eventually it will come, but you got to suffer a bit, which is not something any of us want to hear, right? But anyways, I hope this video has been helpful to some of you. Yeah, God bless you all. Have a good day.